an attitude. We need swagger, okay? Regardless of what happens out there. Doesn't matter. Keep your swagger.
Welcome to the Five Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts tonight, Jay and Alan. We are the only fantasy hockey podcast that helps you find and or keep your swagger. Jay, how's it going tonight?
Oh man, it's Alan. It's awesome. I can already see Parataren in the chats. Let's talk hockey.
All right, but before we get going, just some real quick housekeeping. Now that we're doing a lot of YouTube, make sure to subscribe and like us. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers because there does open up some producer options for us. Discord, I think we jumped over 2,700, but we're one of, if not the biggest fantasy hockey Discords out there. Like the other guys say, get in before your league mates do. And always run the Twitter/X. Give us a follow there. And with that out of the way, we'll jump right into storylines, injuries around the league. One of probably the two biggest storylines in the last 24 hours. Jim Montgomery, head coach of the Boston Bruins, was relieved of his head coach duties yesterday. Joe Sacco is labeled as the interim. I guess in just like the league, if you lose hard enough, you get stuck with Sacco. But we could discuss the real life implications all day long. But Jay, from a purely fantasy perspective, Jay, what do we think this does for the Bruins, who are kind of rough so far?
Oh man, PT. Sorry, just mentioning PT's comment here. This community is my hidden gem. I've shared it with everyone outside of my league. PT, right at you, man. It's incredible. It's a good community. Speaking of community, I think that's exactly probably what the Bruins are hoping to bounce back. Like, you can't fire the whole squad. It's probably way easier to fire one guy, target lock, say it's Montgomery's fault. Guys,
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I feel like it was just last season, and we were just talking about the Oilers firing their coach. And it's like, guys, this is it now. They're going to go to the moon. But you look at that roster, and I'm just like, I don't know. I'm starting to feel that maybe the Bruins overachieved last season, and this is them slamming back down to earth.
It's also incredibly... It's difficult to understate just how good of a player in a center and line one, power play one center Patrice Bergeron was, and well, I don't know about is, but was, and it's crazy. It's kind of crazy to consider that they dropped down to getting Pavel Zacha basically top line minutes, and then he just rolls, and Boston, just continues as if nothing else happened. This team has basically nothing in the prospect cupboard bin, so. It's not that surprising after a while, the more you extend the games, that maybe it's just a dearth of talent. Truthfully, it's just a dearth of talent. They're not as talented as, maybe their previous records could have indicated. And right now, let's see, if Montgomery's fired, maybe they'll have a new coach bounce. I think, Alan, you and I mentioned before that there's, a 9-12 game, we got a new coach.
Again, deja vu. I think the last season we thought with the Sens, we're like, oh, they're doing it too. Like, the Sens, all your Sens are going to go to the moon now. And it was just like, 1 to 2 games. And then they just started losing again to teams that they shouldn't be losing to.
Do we think they will end up, I guess, galvanized, so to speak? Like, which players, Alan, do you think would be the galvanized pieces?
And that's what I'm sure that locker room atmosphere really hasn't changed much. I mean, they always, for years, they've always talked about how, like, there's not a stigma, but just such a strong paradigm for being a Boston Bruin. But I mean, as far as like on the ice, I mean, you got aging Marchand, who I think just came off a couple surgeries. Elias Lindholm, who even I was listening to a few other pods, and they were mentioning how when he got traded to Vancouver, it took him a minute to do anything. And this could just be Elias Lindholm. Maybe if you held him long enough, he could be like top 1C material. But just for now, it's. I mean, if you got your studs, keep your studs. But otherwise, I mean, do we really want to stream from these guys?
I've wondered as well where Elias Lindholm kind of strikes me a little bit where could he possibly be the guy that plays incredibly well, but he's almost the prototypical and ideal 2C as opposed to the dynamic.
There we go. And that was one of the other
rolling
discussions
1C.
is he a great supporting piece, not the straw that stirs the drink or the piece, the game-breaking piece.
Because the biggest part with even Elias Lindholm always in all fantasy seasons before is his value was, a little muted in redraft, I guess just straight stock draft leagues, classic leagues. The greater value often was his salary cap league, in the salary cap league where he's just immense value at that 4.5, 5.5 contract deal. Wow. Just, he fits right under the cap and he's amazing, offers like almost like subliminal value. But now he's just in the limelight. He's just in that spotlight of, like you are with the top best right winger in the league. What can you do? Maybe that isn't it, but hopefully we're all wrong, and it turns out of all the players that Sacco is going to regalvanize. I mean, it's got to be Lindholm or bust. Honestly, it's got to be maybe McAvoy as well. McAvoy and Lindholm got to be the guys that.
But I gotta say, and then of course you have Swayman, who I think it was TJ mentioned before the season even started. Like he missed camp for his contract, understandably. But now he's like, this is his training camp. Like, maybe he gets to where he thinks he is, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But you can't ride Korpisalo. It's Swayman or bust. But hopefully, from a fantasy perspective, everyone's who's held their passes, their McAvoys, their Swaymans, hopefully you'll be rewarded very soon in the short term. But next one, the second probably biggest storyline in the hockey world in 24 hours. JT Miller, the Vancouver Canucks, is taking an indefinite leave of absence for personal reasons. From a fantasy perspective, Petey, you're up, because that top six drops off real quick. Second line, Pia Suter. Oof. But Jay, I saw you had some notes here. I don't know how deep in the rumor mill we want to get, but
yeah. And the thing is, I guess there's a difference between stirring the pot with a rumor mill and actually promulgating rumors ourselves, right? But the comments that were, I will say, redacted, deleted, right? The comments rumoring around once it came out was that, oh, wow, is there something about a spinal degenerative disease? And it was like, wow, this sounds really, deep, intense. And I think there were even questions posed to the coach about whether or not they were injury-related reasons for Miller, and the coach shot them all down. And Tocchet was just like, no, it's just not.
It's a guy who needs a reset,
right? And so I think reset is where everyone's kind of landed upon. That's the official word. And the big one too, I would say, man, Petey, I completely doubted Petey all the way through, and Elias Pettersson, I just looked at it like with the JT Miller notes. Dude's like the top 7th, I think, in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, Jay. So either I'm about to be the biggest doofus or the biggest genius for trading Petey away in the Listener League. I mean, I'm not mad with my return, but I'm either going to be the biggest doofus or the biggest genius when everything's said and done.
It's insane, but if there's any time that the Canucks really needed one guy more than anyone else to step up, it was Petey, and it looks like it's not even he's stepping up. It's more like he's just continuing on.
He's being thrust into it.
Right. And I guess if not him, it is Pia Suter, because I was looking and there's pretty much nobody else that's going to get those upgraded minutes.
Oh, well, there we go. That would explain why Mrs. Miller deleted her Instagram.
Personal reasons indeed, PT. Oh, Paratarin.
But yeah, moving on. Less heavy note. it looks like there's a new 0G hero rising. Dustin Wolf in his last 5 starts, 4-0-1 with a 946 save percentage, 155 goals against, and 1 shutout. On the season, he is 3rd in save percentage, behind only Anthony Stolarz and Philip Gustafsson. Man, and I'm glad. I'm assuming there's some parameter to that, because I'm like, well, shouldn't Jonathan Quick have like a 0 goals against or something crazy? But yeah, and I mean, we do have a mailbag question pertaining to Wolf, but holy crap, Jay, I did not realize he was humming along that well on a team that we really didn't expect anything from.
And I want to say, too, like, has Vladar been doing poorly? I'm looking at around the stats. I don't think Vladar has been necessarily torrentially horrible either. But, yeah, definitely Wolf. Reminds me of that Utah situation last season where there was definitely a Vejmelka and Ingram 1A, 1B, and then Ingram just completely took it over. It looks like a kind of rerun of that situation.
At least for now, yeah.
At least for now, yeah. The team is definitely not... I mean, I don't think they're at the top of the standings per se, but they're definitely still like hovering around playoff position, right? Like I don't think that you mess around with a team that's
in the Pacific, maybe in the Pacific. I haven't looked at conference.
So they're 3rd
lately.
in the Pacific. They're a point above Edmonton. They have a game in hand over Edmonton too. So I don't know. Like maybe this is something they don't mess around with if it is working enough. I'd assume.
All right. Moving on to injuries. Again, yeah, probably another big headline in the last 24 hours. Turns out the Russian machine does break. Alexander Ovechkin is now week to week after abstaining a lower leg injury in Monday's game. Just trying to see him skate. It was hard to tell like what exactly was wrong, but there was definitely something off to his stride. This kind of sucks, man. He was I think he had just either tied or taken league leading goals from the season. There was question on if he could break Gretzky's record this season. But now it's like he will. It was just a matter of when. And this hurts. I think this hurts Washington as a whole, since the team was kind of centered around supporting that pursuit of that goal record. But unless you had anything.
Yeah, the other one was more so like, what does that do in terms of like the Stromes and the McMichaels, who previously there was so much value associated to them, but probably a value because of Ovechkin on the line.
And we do have a kind of a mailbag question about that later on. But yeah, you got to think like, what does this do for anyone who was on top line or top power play with him?
And the other one too is the type of injury. If he was week to week, which is already good, right? Like the worst injuries that they were, I guess, like projected to be when they saw when he initially just like collapsed onto the ice. You were thinking, man, is this guy like, does he have a torn, any of those CLs that is listed?
Oh God, it'd be
horrific.
That'd be season ending, as we just saw with Anthony Mantha.
Yeah, especially at age 39 as well, right? Like the injury recovery timeline for those is so long. I think it's like 8 to 9 months. You're imagining a 40-year-old coming back like that, and it's like, oh dear. It looks like it's been avoided. Like I think even the replays, like they broke down the video and they said it looks like it's just kind of like a tweaked knee or something. But week to week also. Does that mean he comes back
2
in
weeks?
20? Yeah. Is that 2024 return? Is that All-Star break? Like it's pretty open in the air.
But dude, I'm gonna let you take these next few because this is all Leafs land and ouch.
Okay. So the big one is basically Matthews is just day to day. Then he went on to IR, and after IR, it turns out he's so okay that he's just going to go to Germany to confirm with specialists, just to make sure, just to reconfirm the overall okay space.
For something totally minor, guys, like totally minor.
Right, like it's just, you get a flu, you get the flu and you just need to fly across the Atlantic just to, I don't know what you just pop a few pills. Anyways, if you can't tell, it's like an interesting thing to monitor, especially given that the Leafs have, in addition to Matthews being out now, Max Domi out and David Kampf out. And so somehow we ended up with no centers on the Leafs aside from John Tavares. So the Leafs have never been an interesting fantasy hockey team in terms of like waiver wire pickups generally because they kind of are just, a heavily stacked team on top. They're kind of like a New York Rangers, like heavily stacked on top. And then, the pieces at the bottom six just aren't that interesting. But now there's actually some pretty interesting pieces. I'm looking now too. They're still up somehow against the Vegas Golden Knights, 1-0. And their top center is Pontus Holmberg. He's 0% owned. He's getting line 2 minutes for some reason. There's just nobody else. Fraser Minton is getting power play 2 minutes.
And then even it looks like Nyes is not on the bench to start the third period. So there's another guy that you might have been able to pick up.
Like, I guess Bobby McMahon, maybe? Like, you're really looking at scraping barrels in terms of getting guys, but the guys are getting like 18, 20 minutes of ice time. Like, this is kind of good value. Mind you, the Leafs have some pretty scrapey, bad schedules in this week, I think. Not this week, but like the next week afterwards. But sure, for sure. Like, if you're looking at, I guess somehow, it's the deepest position in fantasy hockey, the center position. But the Leafs have nobody there. You probably can go to the Leafs, and this is weird to say, but you definitely can go to the Leafs if you need some guys. There's just nobody in the centers. There's no centers left.
Oof. But yeah, moving on. Connor Ingram is day-to-day with an upper body injury. He is staying behind in Utah for an evaluation as they begin their 4-game road trip. Veggie season. I know they have. They called up. It's down further in my notes, but they have made their AHL call up.
Is that his
name? Oh man, hold on. Jackson Stauber is now your second Utah Hockey Club goalie. They do have a back-to-back, so if you want a chance either one of those starts, which we can get into later.
Vejmelka starts both.
Oh God, I hope not. There we go. Okay, so PT Ovi is the human embodiment of Russian gas. Bro was made somewhere in a deep north Russian military base lab. He'll be back and crack the record in half the time. HGH is a hell of a drug, man.
The question is, why is Matthews flying across the ocean and not Ovi if this is the case?
I think NATO would have an issue with that. But moving on, Zach Hyman, and this one snuck by me, is day-to-day. Looks like he took an awkward hit. Someone of interest actually made the score sheet last night. Podkolson. There we go. Might be a sidecar pickup. And I know, guys, there have been other chosen ones. Your Ty Raddies, your Patrick Maroons, your Alex Chasons, but this could be the one. You don't want to miss out on the one. I don't know, Jay, if anything else out of Edmonton.
I was gonna say, jokingly, I'm not even sure if it's jokingly, but is Adam Henrique worth a pickup at this point? It's just you're going for any guy that is potentially going to slot up.
He factored in on something McDavid did, I think, last night. I don't know if maybe he was out there for power play and time ran out, so it was a regular goal. I didn't catch it.
I also want to say McDavid has started out pretty slowly, and now you just kind of glance back at the record and you're like, this dude has 24 points in 17 games? When did that happen? He just kind of motored back in after being injured for a couple games. This Edmonton team is they didn't go away the same way last season's Edmonton team did, but this team, I think the issue really right now is the goaltending. Truthfully speaking, it's been an issue. It's not league average. I'm pretty sure league worst, right? I think there's I
just saw that actually league average just sunk below 900 for the first time since the 80s or 90s. God. And it's just, you can say it's an evolution of skaters have just gotten that much better. You could get by with subpar goalies just because your gear was oversized. There's a few factors, but just end of the day, that was a headline I saw was save percentage has dipped below 900 for the first time in decades.
But still, even with that dip, there were two big names in terms of goalies that are right at the bottom, right? And the insane part is Georgiev with all the shenanigans and man, I was even blasting him on this show going like Georgiev all the way through. He's the second worst goalie. You know who's worst? Stuart Skinner in terms of the stats, which is incredible to consider. And like when you factor that and just realize like Edmonton, I don't know what's happening there, man. Like you ended up with Jack Campbell from the Leafs heading over, and he had, love the guy, just wasn't doing it in the crease. And then Skinner supplants him. And what is happening to Skinner now? It almost looks like Pickard was getting a bit of a run. Not that Pickard was doing much with it either, but like it's if their goaltending just like last season goes to average, this team should just keep skyrocketing up. There's just so much offensive talent, man. Anyways,
I think it turns out Cody Ceci was the linchpin, the thing that the glue that held their defense together, and they went and traded him. Moving on, Seth Jones now officially will be out 4 weeks, confirmed to be a broken foot. He was already out. Whatever. It looks like Vlasic is taking that top power play spot. I've got Seth Jones in a spot, and I'm not running out to pick up Vlasic. I don't know how you feel, Jay. If Vlasic's worth that run and pick up.
Who was the other guy last season that was like constantly bouncing up to power play one? What was his name? Korchinski or something?
There we go. But they never, I don't think they even called him up. Is the other weird part. You would that was the big push once Jones went out, is that they'd call up Korchinski, but they have not.
And he'd get I don't know, like who else do we have there? Alec Martinez. Yeah, I think it's pretty much just Vlasic. Oh yeah,
we look elsewhere.
Yeah, elsewhere.
And then Timo Meyer, after TJ just completely outed him, he's now day to day with back spasms. That's
which we choked
the back.
Which we joked again. Is that a good or a bad thing? Like, I mean, back spasms objectively is not a broken foot. You know what I mean? That could go away tonight, and then he's immediately back on the ice on Thursday morning skates, and everything's good in the world.
And then last one, Seth Jarvis. He's day to day. Hopefully next game. Now he's just on IR. But there's also been shakeups on their lines tonight too. It looks like against Philly. But for returns, Alex Tuck will return tonight, but Tage doesn't sound like he'll be back tonight. But they're saying the latest he is expected to return is Saturday against San Jose. And then next one is Robert Thomas, that guy who plays for the St. Louis Blues. No other significance to that name. He returned to action after I think. Oh, what didn't he have like a broken ankle or something? It was something, whatever, at the beginning of the season where he was sidelined. He is now back. He had 1 assist. Looks like he took his spot back on power play 1. Braden Shen, you can now safely drop him.
Man, it was a good run with your Shen, but you gotta stick with Bob once he's back.
But it is now that time of the episode.
You've got mail.
Mailbag.
Let's hit the mailbag. First one from Swiss Cheese in the Discord. How do we feel about Lehkonen going forward into 12-team bangers? Is he still a hold? Unfortunately, I saw an update today that for some reason, I don't know why. I'm going to keep cool. They have taken Lehkonen off of Power Play 1 and put Jonathan Drew in there.
Oh.
I don't know what they're thinking. Apparently, it just Bednar sees something we don't, man. But I still think playing with that core, which he will have access to, either one of or both of McKinnon or Rantanen, you got to hold him. I mean, I was looking at. I think he's right now looking at a point per game pace. I thought I saw. Let me pull that back up.
Oh, Bednar. Currently, he's at what? He's got 6 points in 7 games. Yeah, that's pretty much point per game.
Oh, there we go. Pacing for 70 points. His last 2 seasons in Colorado, he's paced at like mid-60s. So so there we go. That's my caveat. If a 65-ish point winger with little to no like hits, blocks, shots to you is worth the hold in that league, hang on to him. Otherwise, I mean, I don't. You might be able to find guys who don't get as many points, but maybe have a better peripheral floor. But I mean, in a points league, I would absolutely hold. But this is, I don't know if it's categories, but yeah, no. If those points are worth more than the peripherals, I would hold.
Well, I mean, the crazy other part is if the thing that upsets folks about Lehkonen is that obviously the power play 1 access in Colorado is just insane. There's just so much talent. They're going to score. You want some guy touching the puck over or being on the receiving end of a McKinnon or Makar pass. But Lehkonen's at 66%. If you're not believing in it and you're really upset about it, like, go to Drouin. Drouin's at 21%. Like, I don't think he's going to keep it. I wouldn't be that worried.
12-teamer, I don't think you're going to find like a 65, 70-point guy on the wire at this point in the season.
If it is, it's going to be a guy.
And there's no guarantee that just because Drouin is on Power Play 1 today that he will stay there forever.
Exactly.
But yeah, I would hold.
Exactly.
Next, DCO8 in the Discord. In a 10-man league, Cat's banger with face-off wins. Is Wyatt Johnston a drop? With his drop-off, I'm finding it hard to drop him for a streamer spot based on his previous season success. And there we go. That's where I feel like this season and every season before, there's been that one guy who either tears it up right at the end or just goes ham in the playoffs. So there's that recency bias of like, oh my God, I got to draft this guy. And we all get bamboozled by that one guy. I'm almost wondering if Joe is that guy this season. The only thing that sticks out to me is his shot percentage is low. And they kind of keep moving him all over the lineup. I think tonight he was with Hintz and Robo, but I think he's been up there before too and hasn't manufactured much. I don't know, Jay, if you have any comments on Joe.
Well, I mean, funny enough, he scored tonight, so maybe
well, there you go. Hopefully you at least held him tonight.
Right, yeah. So he scored tonight, so that's better than him not scoring tonight. The big setup is more so that he is always he is the X. Does that make sense? He's that X that you just kind of, you're like, man, if only. And the problem is, if you're thinking if only, they're not doing any shit for you in the present, So it's probably not going to kill your team if your team's ahead, and you're winning despite it, and it really depends what your record is. 6-0, dude. Your team's winning as is.
It doesn't hurt you to hang on.
Do whatever.
In 10-team, I almost feel like there might be someone who's producing now on the wire always.
And the other one too is if your team is already winning, you want more high ceiling upside players. It's when you're 1-6, 2-4, and you're chasing shit that you really realize I can't fall in love with the past. I can't fall in love with future. I need production now. And the problem with Waju is he can't guarantee you production now. I mean, he got good production for you tonight.
He is only on a 36-point pace this season.
That goal he scored was the first point in the last 4 games. The last goal before that was also his first point in the prior 4 games.
But yeah, no, I in a 10-man, you probably have someone who's producing now on the wire. But if you believe in Joe and it's not hurting your position in the rankings to hold him, why not? Why not? That's part of the fun of fantasy to me is having those guys that like I enjoy having.
The last one too is remember that if you drop a guy like an Essa Lindell, I'm just picking on a guy like right around Johnston's area. Crazy to say that they're hanging around in the same area of production. If you are dropping an Essa Lindell, you are confident the moment you drop him, you're getting him back, once he clears waivers. If you needed him, so to speak. If you drop Wyatt Johnston, just be comfortable that you are never getting him back and just be okay with it. Maybe that is fine. Maybe that isn't. Maybe that is. And if it doesn't pass your mojo, then don't drop him. But why would you be asking the question like this if, truthfully, it wasn't affecting, production and scoring in some way, shape, or form? Don't fall in love with the past is all I'm saying.
All right. Next one, Circler in Discord with Kent Johnson due to return from injury. Sounds like he is confirmed for tomorrow. I actually see him tomorrow. I'm going to that game. Was his hot start just a fluke, or is there any sustainability there? Yeah, man, I didn't realize how off to a hot start he was. But it looks like lines today, he was, I think, line 2 with Fantilli and on power play 1. So his deployment is very nice. But he had 5 points in 4 games. I don't like his other point paces for the other seasons, but he was doing. He had a good start there. That shooting percentage is a little nuts, 25%. But he certainly has the deployment and pedigree to continue that. I don't think he'll do 103 point pace the whole way, but even if on Columbus you get someone that you probably took very late or picked up off waivers that ends up being like a 60, 65 point guy. Yeah, that's good value.
I mean, it's also kind of insane to consider, right? Like, dude had no peripherals, He shot 8 times and scored twice, 25% clip.
Yeah.
Like, this guy screams everything about unsustainability so much that he literally got, on the eye. He was so hot that he went on the...
That sample size is so small. It's really hard to say. But I mean, his other seasons, though, and it's so hard to compare because how many coaches have been turned over in those seasons he would have been. So it's hard to say. I don't feel like there's a large enough stable sample size to say...
Who would he supplant? You know what I mean? I'm looking right now. Like, he probably isn't going to take Monahan off. Probably isn't going to take Fantilli off. So
no,
line 3 center. You know what I mean? Like, it's
he like I said, he was line 2 with Fantilli, and I forget.
Oh, they moved Fantilli
the other winger
over. Okay.
No, it was Fantilli's. Yeah, they moved Johnson to the wing, and with Van Riemsdyk.
Well, I mean, it's not like Columbus has crushed in the past 17 games that they, haven't had him. Well, sorry, I mean, the last 14 games that they played without him.
Yeah, and power play 1. He bounced Fantilli.
It's not like they've had crazy. Who is their power play 1 lock anyway? Werenski?
Yep.
Monahan, Marchenko.
Mm-hmm. Chinikov,
Shoot.
I think it was.
Yeah. Voronkov.
Voronkov. There we go. So I would say...
I guess there is space. Shit, yeah, I guess there is space for him.
You can still slide Fantilli, but I don't know who plays what position. But as far as sustainability, which was the question, he's got the deployment, sample size of -1 because he hasn't played a game yet. But and the pedigree, so he could... I don't think, like I said, I don't think he sustains 100 point pace, but maybe something more reasonable like 60 on that Columbus team.
Yeah, or the Flyer. I mean, I don't think they've got an amazing schedule for week 7, for the remainder of week 7 or week 8. So I don't think it's one where you kind of, drop everything, bells and whistles, everything, no matter what, to add them back on. Just hold them onto your IR and, pop them on when it's convenient in your scheduling, and worth seeing. The problem is too, I haven't even heard of Kent Johnson. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
no,
the
he
guys
was one
that
of their
are
higher end first rounders.
The fact that he hasn't even hit my radar, so to speak, doesn't indicate anything about, oh wow, like, I can't believe this. It's just, this is the scale to which productive fantasy players can exist in a league. There are a lot of players that can produce. So honing in on any one of them can actually dampen and harm your team if you're solely pigeonholing down onto one group. There probably is another guy that can produce way more for you in terms of a scheduling perspective and whatever, even with upside, than Kent Johnson. Truthfully.
But I think the opportunity is there to answer your question, Circler. Next one, D Stu on Discord. What to do with protests with Ovi out for a few weeks? He had great production playing with Ovi. And there's the key phrase. He had great production playing with Ovi. But looking under the hood, almost half of his assists were secondary. He himself was shooting at a 25% rate. Like I don't. And looking at their
Screaming
schedule for the
regression?
rest of the week, he is not a guy I would hold on for dear life for the rest of the week. If you need a streamer spot, there's your streamer spot. But I don't know. I just don't see, because I think he's also another career, like kind of 20, 30 point guy who, was clicking with Ovi when he was clicking. But I don't, for me, he wouldn't be a hold in really any league.
He's also confusing, right? Like he's a guy that played 18 minutes a night and got nothing but a block and a 5-2 win. Kind of a bizarre stat line.
I think it's shooting at like 1.6 shots per game, which is there are way better guys that shoot at like 2 shots a game. I have no confidence in Protus.
And like the game afterwards, like, doesn't. Oh, sorry, he did get a shot. Plays 15 minutes, gets 2 assists. Like it's just there's nothing about his production that screams sustainability, and there's nothing about his production.
Well, sustainable, independent of Ovi. I personally, I'm holding Strome because I feel like Strome has his own talent pedigree to drive play. I just, no. Someone like Protus, no. McMichael, I would still hold. Wilson, probably, especially in a Bangers League. PLD, streamer.
You need guys whose minutes open up significantly and whose opportunities open up drastically when another guy bounces out. I don't know if Protus is high enough on that totem pole where he slots in right up there.
Because he had been on that top line probably all season, but it just, like I said, I know some people look really into that. TJ's one of them, but half of his assists were secondary assists. So he's not really the one driving the play. But Cervix on Discord. What are we doing with Allmark? I would hold. I mean, unless, not even if there's like another bona fide starter. I just feel like you do and this is why I've heard you typically don't trade goalies at trade deadline, is there is a learning curve to a team system, like building that chemistry with the team, like what you can rely on the team to block for you, what you need to be in place for. It's a learning curve. It's just, it's funny because it's as someone made a joke on Reddit, I think it was it's like, oh look, like they're hugging again, and it was like both Swayman and Olmark are like at the bottom of the rankings, like right next to each other. No, I would hold. I don't, unless someone gets goofy and drops like a bona fide starter on a better team. I would hold.
The one I was going to ask too, or I guess like put out there as well, is I hold Olmark in leagues, and I'm honestly starting to become a non-believer. The issue though I recognize is I recognize that the floor is the part that I am staring at right now, and I can see that it might ski downhill further. But at the same time, I do recognize that in previous seasons, that ceiling is very, very high, and that on the waiver wire, you're not likely to get anything close. I think it might be worthwhile if you're no longer believing in Olmark, like, wouldn't be worth, like, it might be worth considering trading away and trying to recoup assets in return for Olmark. But I would probably try to go not laterally in terms of the same position. I would probably do my best to try to trade Olmark for a second, I guess, like to shore up a second position or a secondary position on your league, and I don't know, try to get like a scoring winger, so to speak. Because if you drop him and you pick up whatever guy you're going to pick up on the wire, you're going to get him anyway. But I don't know if that guy on the wire would generate trade interest the same way Olmark would.
Word. But before we get to the Twitter questions, we got Mitchell in the chat. Do you think this 5-forward power play in LA continues for a while? If so, is Clark a drop in a 14-team league? Do I think the 5-forward power play continues? Not forever. Heck no. all these teams try it. They've tried it for years. It never sticks. It's seriously, it's like that quote from Arrested Development. Like, all these people delude themselves into thinking it'll work for them. Well, it just might work for us. No, it's not going to work for them. They're going to go back to 4-1, 3-2. But I would give Clark a little bit more runway.
Who's been the forward pointing up? Like, it's been Quentin Byfield taking the spot of Clark, right? I don't know. Like, it's a strange one, right? Because I guess the real question is more so Laferriere took the spot to start, but Byfield was the guy that everyone kind of assumed would eventually pigeon up into it. It's kind of a little strange that Clark was the guy they dropped instead of Laferriere. I guess that points to probably just how well Laferriere has been playing. I question a little bit the Clark setup, mainly because we're already 20 games into the season, which also indicates that we're heavy, almost in December, and Doughty's going to be back, right? Doughty's going to claim that power play 1 spot so quick. If Clark can't fend off Quentin
a fifth
Byfield,
forward,
right? Like, he ain't going to fend off 2-time Stanley Cup winning, champion.
There we go. So PT's telling us, Byfield's net front, Laugh, Fiala, Kopi in the middle, and Juice on the point.
Yeah. Oh.
No, the 5-forward power play never sticks. All these teams delude themselves into thinking it'll work for them. It's not forever. But especially in a 14 team, if you drop Clark, someone will want to pick. And then they could go back to a normal power play deployment by the time he clears waivers, and you lost him for nothing. Just hold. So now these next two on Twitter, at 76 Swanson. I know it's early, but how would you compare past rookie goalies to Wolf? I was trying to think of this one. Like, goalies in general are voodoo. Rookie goalies even more, because you got to think I was hearing probably the big reason goalie hasn't won the Calder in forever is just because to want to play a goalie that much, you really don't have other options, and then also be in a position to actually be competitive. So it's very rare a rookie goalie really gets room to spread his wings like a peacock. Even I'm thinking of back to Levi, how we thought he got that little run in Buffalo, and then next season out of the gate he stumbled. He's great now, but I feel like at any moment, well, I don't know, they're running a tandem, so he could. This could be a Swayman where it's great. Like, Wolf is great all season. You have no issues with him. He keeps the same level of play, but it could also be the moment he gets any sort of run, he looks human again. I guess we just haven't seen the bottom fall out on Wolf yet. There we go. That's how I would compare him.
And if we're talking about rookie goalies in their seasons, technically, what was his name? I'm going so far back in time, 2006. But Cam Ward won the Stanley Cup as a rookie goalie.
There we go.
So clearly rookie goalies can do, some serious heavy damage. It's just, you're looking at Wolf. I would hesitate less so to focus on the goalie himself, because obviously the goalie is just part of an entire system and play. Most of the goalie setups and systems that we have in fantasy hockey revolve around your team getting wins. Truthfully, it's just, wins are a huge cat, shutouts are a second cat. Your team needs to be able to back you up and do just as much to get and preserve your win, give you goal support, all those things. I don't know when we're comparing Wolf to that scale when you're describing. He's a good goalie.
I was just trying to think of the guys who come in like Demko. I remember when he got that call up, and it was a big deal because he had the huge pedigree. Carter Hart, who's
Right.
now an unmentionable. It was a big deal when he got called up. Yeah, I don't think we've seen him be human yet,
Right.
like, compared to other goalies. Yeah, it's just if goalies are voodoo anyway, and now you're talking about a guy with no actual sample size. But last one, oh man, I don't see his handle, but Donald Boat Enthusiast, is JT Miller due for some positive regression after he returns, assuming he keeps playing like he was before he left? And this is I had to hold my tongue earlier. So before he left, I don't know if anyone else remembers, but it looked like he was nursing some sort of wrist injury. So he was not taking as many face-offs. But I think I think the big thing I saw was his shot rate was down a little bit. But what was he pacing for? He was pacing for 77 points. So yeah, he could be due. Man, his point paces are all over the place. But yeah, his shot rate was down a little bit. He was shooting at a nice 2 versus like 2.5. His shot percentage was down. So there's room for positive regression. It's just a matter of, again, if it was a wrist injury, how much of that has healed up in whatever time he takes off.
In terms of actionable steps, JT Miller falls into that category of player where they're so, like, their ceiling just clouds every impression of everything else they do. I guess the wondering for JT Miller would be, let's say he does and is due for positive regression. Are you looking to trade then JT Miller while he is injured? Because I think the risky part there is any person trading an injured player is thinking of their asset at peak. Any person trading for an injured player, though, is thinking of that asset and the floor they offer. So the only thing I would caution for the Donald Boat Enthusiast is more so you have to understand he possibly may be due for regression, but probably if you're looking at your own ceiling play, you're probably better off holding him and hoping that, fingers crossed he comes back true. Because if you trade him, what you're essentially saying is, I'm gonna what's it called? I'm gonna buy puts. I'm buying puts on JT Miller that he's not gonna come back, swinging for the fences. And I don't know if with the caliber of player that JT Miller is, I don't know if I'm buying puts on him immediately now and looking to trade away. I don't know.
I was gonna say, if someone wants to trade him for like that 100-point value, sure. Especially if you're hurting right now, if you're toward the bottom and you need that, you're missing that production, I would listen to an offer for JT Miller. But as far as positive regression goes, there's room for it. But again, if he was already kind of missing face-offs, shot production was down, how much of that stays, we don't know. But there we go. We'll use the magic word, should. He should bounce back, depending on how minor that wrist injury was. But let's get into the weekend preview. This one's really lame, guys. They're really just not much from a streaming opportunity. I kind of agree with what Matty K and TJ said on the week preview, that if you've used all your ads by like Thursday, probably by the time you're listening to the show, you probably did it right. There are no teams that have Friday and Sunday. Friday, there's 2 games, Buffalo at Anaheim. The only recommendation I had there, Jay, was Ryan McLeod, if Tage isn't back yet, because it looks like he's getting top line minutes, I think, with Paterka and someone I've never heard of until I looked at their lineup. I don't know if you're thinking of any. Actually, you sniped freaking Byram on me. I was waiting for a few minutes. I would say Byram, another good pickup there, Jay.
The confusing part as well is it's very much what you were saying, Alan, about if you were using your ads already. I was just saying, like, I was late to the ads, and I'm really already thinking about week 8, so to speak. I was going to advise any listener that was like looking forward to the weekend, you might as well wait until the Saturday games play out, see where you sit. And honestly, if you if you don't have a winning lineup already, punt week 7 and just load the hell up on week 8, guys, because you're going to need a couple of week 8 teams to really, like, that's a bad week as well, scheduling wise. You're going to need a few choice teams to pick from. But basically, the two teams that it boils down to really are Buffalo and Toronto. If you can get as many Buffalo Sabres and Toronto Maple Leafs, in one of my leagues now, I have like the entire Toronto blue line, like just because like they're just hanging around, and you just need guys that are playing on off nights. My entire Saturday, they're all filled up. That's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. We were even talking, right? Like this schedule, like in terms of Friday and Sunday, there's no teams, right? No teams have that juice.
So you're basically trying to pick these guys up for one game. And hoping that moves the needle for you. The other game is Pittsburgh at Winnipeg. I mean, yeah, Beauvillier is still top line. I don't want anyone against Winnipeg. I would be more looking for guys playing for Winnipeg. There we go. Adam Lowry, man. Like if I needed like a big streamer for like a week.
Jonathan Quick. Hell yeah, PT. Holy smokes. Yeah. Absolutely though.
Yeah, the guys like Adam Lowry. I would take Adam Lowry over Nemestikov, even though Nemestikov's line too.
And Nino? Nino's another one.
Yeah, Nino.
He's trending up there, though, in terms of ownership.
Give me the guys on the Adam Lowry line, even though I think Niederreiter is one of them.
Mason Appleton? Yeah.
But no, I personally would target Lowry. Sunday, the only game is Utah at Toronto, and Utah is on the second half of a back-to-back. So already none of those guys are of interest to me. Toronto, guys, like we just went over this at the beginning of the episode, like they're the injury ward. Dude, like Bobby McMahon.
They friggin' blanked Vegas? Minutes. That's crazy. 3-0.
Yeah, Wall played tonight.
Without nobody. Like with no one.
Yeah. Even Eismantown. Yeah, I would see like who's available Sunday before the game, and just if you really I don't even know who just see who's actually playing Sunday.
Right.
But your goalie stream options, Buffalo does have that back-to-back on the California trip. They're at Anaheim, at San Jose. Levi is in the minors at the moment, so it looks like James Reimer is the current Buffalo backup. I guess, yeah. Now that as soon as I saw that, I remember they claimed him on waivers. Reimer's all right. Like I wouldn't mind playing him against either one of those teams. The Saturday, Sunday back-to-backs. You got Utah at Pittsburgh and at Toronto. Bijamelka is probably getting scooped up with Ingram going day to day. Even though I think his ownership was only like 6% when I checked earlier. But Jackson, like I said, Jackson Stauber would be the pickup on the backup. I would target the Pittsburgh game, definitely not the Toronto game.
Well, the other one I was going to say too is like even that Buffalo Anaheim game. I was looking just to double check. Like, are we in those? What was that one? Not Freaky Friday. What's the one where it's like role reversal? I don't know. Anyways, but like,
Freaky Friday.
Freaky Friday. Yeah. John Gibson is at 19% ownership. Am I like they're on a 3-game win streak and they're basically alternating starts. Like what? That's insane. Go pick up John Gibson. 19% ownership? Yeah, definitely go pick up John Gibson. They are not. I don't even know if they are favorites against San Jose. It's basically the same team in my mind. Two California teams that are trying to still basically on the way up from a tank. That game's a toss-up. That game could literally be whomever wins. But John Gibson at 19%? Hell yeah. The other same argument the other way. If he's taken, go the other side. Who's on the other? Who's in the other crease? Like both of those guys have got to be ownable too, right? Like, yeah, 17% ownership. Mackenzie Blackwood, frick, like nobody. Like Vanacek is even out, so it's just Mackenzie Blackwood. Like definitely. Well,
they called up Askarov. Whether or not he actually gets they almost have to play him tomorrow. They're not going to play Blackwood back to back.
Back to back, yeah. So, frick, yeah, you gotta.
So we'll see just how high this kid's pedigree is.
Yeah. I mean, right now, Blackwood is getting absolutely he's not getting dumpstered. 3 goals in 27, still losing.
Shh, he's great for volume.
He's great for volume.
So as far as next week prep, there are no Sunday, Monday like back-to-back overlaps there, but the Jets, if you have them for Friday, Saturday, they play a game Monday, so might be worth hanging on to those guys.
Next week prep, the most important thing you could possibly do: 3 teams: Boston, Montreal, Vancouver. If you get Boston, Montreal, and Vancouver, you get teams with 2 off nights in a crazy heavy loaded season. If
and
you
remember,
get
it's American Thanksgiving, so there's like no games Thursday, so everything is compressed to Wednesday and Friday.
Right. So you need Boston, you need Montreal, you need Vancouver. If you get any of those 3 guys or 3 teams, load up on those teams. And I would say too, that's the other part about Saturday. So save your week 7 ads. Save your week 7 ads. I mean, honestly, by the time this episode comes out, like, you're most likely not going to be able to benefit aside from like a 1-game stream or anything. There's no Friday, Sunday back-to-back anyway. Save your week 8 ads, save your week 7 ads. Load up on Montreal, Boston, Vancouver for week 8. And yeah, there you go. Your free week 8 win.
That's going to go ahead and do it. As always, guys, the YouTubes, the Twitters, the Discords, we're all still out there. Good night, good mental health, everyone, and we'll talk to you later.
We'll pick you up later. Pete C never changed, man. What a gem.